Hi, everybody. Welcome to another episode of the Hammers and Dice podcast. With me are Esteban,
Yo,
Reed,
Hi, everyone.
and John is not with us tonight because he is not here. So,
he will be missed, but he will be here in spirit while he's rocking his little heart out.
yeah, we were potentially going to do a little bit of a mech episode for this one, but John is our resident mech expert. So we're going to wait until he's back with us to do the full uh, mech podcast. But
Quick
before we get
breakdown.
to things, everyone want to kind of like chat a little bit about what you've got going on hobby wise right now. Who wants to start?
I'm happy to go. I've had a lot of hobby terrain success lately. I've been printing a lot of busted out rhinos. So I've started, trying to do just a couple of different Legion colors right now. I started with Sons of Horus. I'm gonna do a couple, and Beto, I want to hand off to you to do some Imperial Fist. If you can do
Absolutely.
those. And then obviously like just kind of everyone is the eventual plan, but like I'm trying to prioritize obviously our Siege of Terra look kind of guys. But then besides that, I finished two of the Warhound Down Titans, and I'm
Nice.
working on number three now, and I'm doing a Mortis one right now. So I that's what I'm working on right now while we're talking tonight. Hopefully, gonna have some good progress to that. Yeah, really just like once again, here's another Rhino that's in progress. Just terrain central right now. No models are getting painted otherwise.
Awesome. How about you, Esteban?
So with Palm Springs ending, I was initially planning to take a very long hobby break because I had pushed so hard to get my own terrain done, as well as my Dark Angels pushed a little further. But my friend group, who we all play Necromunda, led me onto an eBay sale of Necromunda tiles, $65 per pack. Cheap as shit compared to normal GW prices. So of course I went and bought four of those, and they arrived actually a few days ago. So that can be my late birthday gift to myself. And right now my printer is going off crazy, printing a bunch of 3D columns and walls. In fact, right before I got on, I was very busy frantically cleaning up my last print because I was like, I don't want to have these sitting because my cleaning station is very small, and if they back up, it's going to become a big mess. But I will have Zone Mortels, so I'm happy about that.
Woohoo!
Ooh.
Oh
Beto?
yeah, it's spreading.
Uh, yeah, I finished up my White Scars army about like maybe a month ago, and I do have a couple other units. Like I've been sitting on like a fully built squad of like 10 assault marines that I know I'm never gonna run as a 10-man squad, so I really just need to buy another box. But the idea of working on any more White Scars right now, it's with my White Scars, it's like you gotta prime them, and then I gotta go over it with a gloss coat and specifically with another shade of white with an airbrush. And I'm like, it takes so long just to even begin to paint one model that I'm like, I just have no motivation for White Scars right now. So I'm just working on Star Wars with Legion, which I know not the podcast for that, but at least they're like down and dirty models, and in an hour I can get them to be like tabletop standard, and I don't have to like beat myself up over like these beautiful expensive models that I like didn't put time into.
It's a palate cleanser, man. Everyone needs a palate cleanser.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit in the same boat. I like was in a frenzy to finish my Custodes army before Palm Springs, and then like since Palm Springs, like I still have a couple more units that I bought that I should build, but I'm taking a little break from painting the Golden Boys right now. So I'm also Beto and a few other friends convinced me to give Legion a try. So I'm painting some clone troopers right now. So we'll see how that goes. But Heresy will always remain my
It's
first
spreading, guys. It's
truest
spreading.
no.
It, it's always that's the hardest thing. Like once you have like the main core army, it's like those little 3 or 4 units that you're like, oh, perfect, all my main stuff's done, but I should get this like little guy that I have like finished. That's the one that never gets painted. That's the one that I'm always like, cool, I'll get around to this like Praetor model that I bought, eventually I'll paint that one, and then yeah, never get around to it.
Yeah. I mean,
Oh
I
yes.
think we'll have some time to do a little bit of a talk on Custodes at the end of this episode. But yeah, I have some extra Venetaria I bought 'cause after playing a few times, I felt like three Venetari is not even though that's like the base squad size, it's not really enough to be effective. So I bought a few extra ones, and I'm just I'll get to painting them eventually. But moving on, unfortunately, we've been a little light on Heresy releases the last few months. I'm hoping that we maybe Nova will get uh, some new updates, but we do have the Mechanic and Plastic box set about to be released. Depending on when I actually get this episode published, maybe it'll already be out. But as of right now, it's coming out in like 2 days. And then there's also, which I think was a little bit of a surprise to most of us, the Knight battle group of the Castigator and the Acheron, which I partly feel like because Knights are in such a weird place, they probably had a little bit of extra stock and are trying to maybe get rid of some of them.
It's a really cool box, honestly. I mean, 2 nights for a really good discount, actually. Like, heck yeah. Just wish I had money to spend on 2 nights, or a need for 2 nights for that matter.
Yeah,
I'm wondering,
I'm
like,
I'm kind of looking more to the Mechanicum box right now rather than the Knights.
I wonder is like, I have no idea good or like a competitive 40K unit, but like as discussed in the past, Knights are kind of in a weird place in Heresy in terms of their rules. But I wonder, like, are they good in 40K or something? Like, is it all roads point to them not being good and thus they didn't sell well, or is there just like, I don't know. I'm trying to give GW the benefit of the doubt that it wasn't just that they botched the rules here and that nobody wants them.
I
Um,
think you could look at really like they lack for reactions and warlord traits, and like they lack what makes like kind of the legions feel really good. Like if they could take knightly kind of, not like virtue, but like household, kind of rules, I think they could actually gain some kind of, benefit. Maybe they can get more reactions, which I think will help them.
and also
Um,
just las cannons are their bane, like with any tank.
yeah.
Yeah, it's nice that they don't suffer from most of the results on the vehicle damage table, but the extra D3 wounds from the explodes result, if you're being shot at by a 10-man last cannon squad and you get unlucky, that's your knight dead in one turn,
And I
potentially.
think they're missing brutal on a lot of their weapons. I think that's really hurting them as well. So
Yeah.
like like they could go up against a contender dreadnought and like that would probably body it.
I was
Yeah.
gonna say, do they have Hammer of Wrath as part of their rule set?
I
Because I think
don't think they do.
maybe that's what they need. Maybe they need like Hammer of Wrath like 10 so that their close combat actually does something.
That
I
would
mean,
be,
you're gonna.
yeah, like Hammer of Wrath, like, yeah, like 8, 9, 10, crazy number. That honestly, I think that's kind of a fun rule too.
I
Yeah.
mean, you still got to roll to hit and roll to wound. So,
Well, I think it auto hits. You just
Yeah,
roll the
Hammer
oh,
of
wound.
Wrath
does it?
auto hits, yeah.
Oh, okay, that
It's
hits.
just
Yeah.
one. I mean, yeah,
Just rolling to win.
for me, I think they're beautiful models. I actually, so a couple years ago, they did the Christmas box set for the Knights, and it came with the vanilla Knight Questoris and 4 Armigers. And then when the Cerastus Knights came out, I was like, well, with the Armiger rules, I can fit one more Knight in my list and it'll be a nice ally detachment. So I got the Castigator because it looks so cool. And I love the model. It was really fun modeling that. But I literally played one game with them and they were so bad. I was like, I don't know if I'm ever going to use these guys again.
Yeah,
Well,
to
like,
the shelf.
See, the problem is he didn't get a Peripheron.
Well, but that's Forge World Red. I mean, I'm
yeah,
not shelling out the dough for that anytime soon.
I
I'd like
mean,
a Warhound.
you are correct.
just like
Around.
like you're like, okay, cool. If I'm running a full knight army, one of my knights has to shoot their last cannon squad. I will die in the return fire. Like my knight will just explode.
I was
Turn,
gonna run a full knight army. I think the only way to do it is you have one knight that's your warlord and you run all armigers. That's
yeah,
it.
but who has ever started a knight army and been like, I really want 13? Dude,
Well, I mean, that's the problem. Like, I think a lot of Legion armies, there's a way to be fluffy and still, have some fun with your list and not feel like you can't win. But at this point with Knights, I don't know that it's possible to do that. right now. I think they're just not in a good place to be not competitive, but to be just like there, to hold
I
their own.
ran I ran a whole night house at the Apocalypse Battle at LVO, and like literally every single one of them was getting demolished, like turn after turn. So like I brought 6 or 7 Night Questoruses and the accompanying armigers that needed to go with it, and it was brutal. Thank God we had the Warlord Titan.
Yeah, I mean, you got like a ridiculous Titan, you know. If you got like a Warhound or a Reaver, like okay, there's some merit to like it's kind of expensive, and you're
They
probably
were getting killed by everything else, man. Like
yeah.
it
Yeah.
really was those, the last cannon teams, and like Alfarius got in our back line at one point in time. It was doing damage, and once again, lack of brutal, a really big oversight.
Yeah.
It
So
is.
long story short, if you like the way they look, they're an amazing hobby challenge. They're really fun to build and paint. Like the new plastic kits are actually like they're a dream to work with. They're a really cool modeling and painting opportunity. But if you're looking to get into them as a way to play Heresy, maybe don't.
Yeah.
Maybe not right now. And then the mech box set, I don't want to talk too much about it because we will in a future episode dig into that, maybe do some like lists using the units in that box set. I am excited that hopefully we'll get to see some more mech players. Now with the new plastic mech, I think more
Yeah.
variety can only help the game and
Yeah.
hopefully convince a few 40K players to jump ship and transfer to the Heresy side. So
And how easy, like, I mean, like, kudos to GW for taking the time to transfer all the bottles from the resin to plastic, kind of like the normal line with the Marines. But with that, like, our game is going to see a kind of a revolution, revolutionary kind of time where like previously, like you had to, kind of sell drugs to potentially own a solar auxilia army. Where like now, like you might just need to do a little bit of like, shady tax evasion or something like that. Like I'm just saying, like
White collar,
the
blue
Whoa,
collar
hold up,
crime.
hold up, hold up there. We went from state crime to federal crime. That's an up there, man.
you get what I mean. Like it's just like there's this idea that we have all of this great stuff coming out now with the Mechanicum, and like if they just do the Myrmidons, like we'd be in such a great area with that entire range.
So,
And
you
from
know,
there, like if they just did one for like a sisters and maybe like a little bit of extra stuff for the custodies, like I think that we could have a bunch of different armies show up and like change our meta from the Space Marine legions, which would be amazing.
yeah.
I would like to see them take the what is it? The Domitar, the other Castellix style automata into plastic because that thing looks brutal and looks like it'd be fun.
Well, I'm
Yeah,
hoping
and they
that.
could do a double kit with that with the Artilac. Sorry, Beto.
Oh yeah, no, good. Well, I was like, I'm hoping that this is just the beginning of the box set. Like when they first announced Legion or Heresy 2.0, we didn't know that Leviathans were coming or that the jet bikes were coming. We just thought like, oh, here's a good jumping off point, and the rest you'll probably still have to buy on Forge World. So I'm hoping that like maybe like 6 months down the line, we'll see like 80% of the stuff in plastic.
Mm.
So I mean, that's how I predict it. Is like, yeah, by the time Christmas comes around, we'll probably see the vast majority of the entire Mechanicum range just fully in plastic at that point.
Yeah.
That would be nice.
Events are going to become really interesting with this kind of new shift of player base, I think.
That would be nice to see. I wanna see angry robots going beep boop all over the field.
I also
Yeah,
think it's going to
less.
depend, just with the way GW operates. It'll depend on how well this box set sells. I think if it sells really well, it'll be reinforcement for them to do more plastic mech.
Well, they
Mm-hmm.
just need to release it when I have, I'm currently unemployed. If anyone knows of any work right now, so once I have funds, GW, it's coming to you.
Somebody get this man a job so he can give
Yeah,
GW more money.
I gotta beat boot more. I repainted my Mechanicum from like so my roommate and I he had Admech and Skatari, and it looked exactly like the Cyrax book that never happened from Forge World. So we were like, oh yes, I got Mechanicum. I started painting it up like his. And then that book never came. So I was like, all right, guys, I started repainting all of my Mechanicum into Martian red now. So like they're going to be ready for the Martian Civil War. You can bet on that.
All right.
Yes, that is going to be awesome when that happens. But yeah, let's move on to the meat of the episode, which is our review of the Palm Springs Open.
Woo!
Esteban and I had the pleasure of going to this event, and Reed and Beto were not there, busy being less cool with their lives.
I had a show. Sorry.
It's okay. Not everyone can afford to get drunk like a ninny winny and just have fun in the desert when it's
Um,
118 degrees outside and the air conditioning fails
hey,
and you're
so
dying on
let's
the
not get ahead of ourselves. Hey,
inside.
we have a process today.
Oh, that's right.
Um,
Sorry. I'm just getting a little bit of Vietnam style flashbacks there.
yeah.
Sorry.
So just like the Palm Springs Open is run by the Dice Hammer guys, which just a little note, when I named this Hammers and Dice, I honestly had no idea that Dice Hammer was a thing. Yeah, I maybe I should have done my research a little better. I don't know, but like I think Esteban was when he told me, it's like, oh, like that Dice Hammers thing. I was like, oh crap. Oh, well, we already named it, so whatever. So
Hey, there's always an opportunity to rebrand. In fact, we should do a
um,
poll on the chat.
yeah.
People, what should we name ourselves?
Maybe we'll do a
No.
rebranding at some point in the future if we get enough fans to care. But yeah, so Palm Spring Open, it's run by the Dice Hammer guys. It is mainly a Warhammer 40,000 tournament. I think there were about 140K tournament players there, and then we landed up having about like 15 Heresy players. We were kind of tacked on. Josh, who runs most of the events at Gamers Haven and Colton, was our fearless leader. He's the one who worked with the Dice Hammer guys, who got us the tables, who really spearheaded the event. Um, he's the nicest guy, and he also really, he made the event what it was. Like he made it fun and allow people the space to kind of do what they wanted. Uh, and we'll get a little bit more into that, but Esteban is clearly very excited to talk about where the event took place because oh boy.
Okay, so I'll take over for here.
Take over.
It's out there in sunny Palm Springs. I mean, why else call it the Palm Springs Open? It's beautiful Southern California. It's the middle of the desert. We're doing it at the very beginning of August when temperatures tend to reach and or exceed 115 degrees. Now, as a native of Southern California, I can tell you that is actually very hot. So hot. And I have family in India, which is just right next door. So I'm used to visiting and spending nights in very poorly cooled AC rooms, but unfortunately, our venue had a bit of a power issue. Friday, the power goes out, and we're like, "Oh, that's weird." Probably a rolling blackout. Look across the street. Oh, 7-Eleven still has power. That's weird. They'll get it solved, right? Yeah, I mean, there's no way this big place can possibly be out of power until 11 o'clock the next day. Or no, wait, it was actually 2 o'clock the next day.
And also, like, so it was the Margaritaville was not the fanciest hotel in the world, but it's not cheap either. You're paying for like on top of the room rate, there was also a resort fee. So, like you have certain expectations, and obviously you're not going to an event like this because of how nice the hotel is, but you also don't want to be like miserable while you're there. And it's 115 degrees during the day. It's still like 95 degrees at night. You walk outside in Palm Springs in the summer, and it's like the heat is like smacking you in the face. It's hot. And like we had dinner hoping it would be back on by the time we got back to the rooms, and it was not. I think it came back on briefly for like an hour at like 11 o'clock at night, and then went off again and was off for the entire night.
You forget it was flickering on and off, so on top of it being very hot,
I
there
mean,
was false hope that they were getting it back on.
I just had like the lights off in my room, just desperately trying to sleep as much as I could. So I was like, I just need to sleep through this and see what
I feel
happens.
like I'd go sleep in my car at that point in time.
Yeah.
So wait, what happened? Did they say what went down or?
I mean, that was also the terrible thing too. They didn't communicate with us. The hotel, like, unless you went up and talked to someone, they made zero effort to be like, "Hey, this is what's going on. This is what we're hoping to get it fixed." Like, we have no idea like what the real cause of the outage was. It was not fun. But the one thing I will say is that a lot of the 40K players, and this I think speaks to the difference between Heresy and 40K, and I'm moving on a little bit from how shitty the hotel was to like how great the Heresy community is here. Because like a lot of the Heresy guys showed up Friday night, and we all like kind of hung out at the pool. We all went to go have dinner together. Whereas a lot of the 40K players didn't show up until like the morning Saturday. Like they were there just to play, to like try to win the event, and we were there to just kind of like hang out, get drunk, play some like casual Heresy games, and like you could tell there's a big difference in the vibe. And like maybe the joke was on us a little bit because we actually were the ones who got stuck without power for showing up early. But
The
uh
dice gods rolled double ones for us on the AC.
uh like, I think it does say something about how like we were there for community and they were there to win, you know. Um and then we also I mean, I like one of the Heresy players actually, I think, built a lot of the MDF terrain. So like that the 40K players were playing on. So like I don't want to trash it for what it is. It looks good, but compared to their MDF terrain they were playing on, like Esteban and Josh brought like these beautifully painted terrain pieces. Esteban and Josh both worked on like really nice custom missions. So like our tables really stood out. When you compared it to just the basic MDF boards that the 40K players were like playing on. Like the Heresy stuff looked sick. Like we really stood out in that room. A lot of 40K players came up to us during the event and were like, "This is really cool." Like a lot of them were like, "I didn't even know you guys were doing Heresy. Like I want to do it next year." Like we really, I think, you
I
know,
was gonna say there was very specifically, Randy, if you recall, there was like a group of like four guys who looked at the table, said, "Wait, is this heresy?" We nod, and they're like, "Fuck! Why didn't we know about this?"
I think really like setting the scene with great terrain is like what's going to make Heresy stand out, and I can't wait for LVO next year for that, and that's why I just keep plugging along at it because I think that'll be the thing that makes the difference.
oh, it makes a huge difference, especially, with, I mean, don't get me wrong, like there were a lot of 40K players who had some really nice painted armies, but there were a lot who didn't. Like a lot of them are chasing the meta, and when you're chasing the meta, you're not working too hard on painting your army. You're just kind of like getting it to whatever base level will suffice. Whereas I think most of the Heresy players had really nice looking armies. Like they looked really great. I think it speaks to what draws people to Heresy and what your priorities are playing the game.
Yeah,
Um,
I think that people forget that like when you first got into 40K, it wasn't because of this like quickly put together plastic terrain or like not plastic paper terrain. It was because of these cool battlefields you saw at your like GW store, and you're like, wow, like that's the stuff that I want to remember when I play 40K. And when you like boil it down to like, I'm trying to win this tournament, sometimes you kind of forget the cool little models that you grew up loving.
yeah. Um, so we were supposed to have, I think, somewhere around 18 to 20 players. Unfortunately, because of the issues with the resort, we had a few dropouts. There are some guys whose girlfriends had come with them, and they were not so thrilled about having to stay at a hotel without power overnight, so they left. Um, so we ended up having, what was it, like 14, 15 players, uh,
15 players, yeah.
which, I mean, I think it's too bad we didn't get to have more people stay, but it was still a really great group of guys. And landed up having two games on the first day. And then the second day, there were two big multiplayer battles. Um, and this was what was fun. I think Saturday night, a lot of the guys were just like talking about like, hey, it'd be really cool to do this. And Josh, basically was like, all right, then let's do it. Like it wasn't like a situation where it was like, oh no, we already have this planned. Like you can't do that. He was like, if this is what people want to do, like then we'll do it. Like he was all about just like whatever people wanted and what would be the most fun for everybody. So that was really
Oh
nice
yeah.
to see.
Oh yes, and I will say being a part of that big, massive 4v4 was amazing. So good. I mean, I'm gonna just say the guys who were playing with and against, it was very, how do I describe it? It's so just exhilarating to just be a part of a massive battle, and you don't really care that your guys are dying or what you're killing. You're just having fun as you guys just cheer each other and taunt each other, poke fun at each other, just it's it literally was just beers and pretzels at that point. Everyone was half drunk or already drunk and just eating food and just enjoying that whole second day to the fullest, honestly. And that's honestly, I think, what makes those kind of days just the best, because you're not like, oh, we're on a time crunch. Oh, we got to make sure we wrap up this rule, that rule. No, just let's just have fun. That's great, honestly. Just being able to enjoy your game.
Yeah. And the interesting thing was too, like a lot of the guys brought like at least two different variations of their lists. If they had a Primarch list, they also had like a non-Primarch list. And so we saw like a lot of variety in the games, and guys being really chill about like, hey, like, do you want to play against this list or do you want to play against this list, and stuff like that. And I think we saw a lot of variety with how tough some of the lists were. I think it kind of ran the gamut a bit from lists that were like a little bit more purely fluffy to lists that were like a little bit tougher. But even with the tougher lists, I don't think anybody was there with a competitive attitude to be like, I'm gonna crush you, like I need to win. It was still, like fun games. And also like the event, like for us at least, the Heresy side, there was no first place, second place, third place winners. Like
Hmm.
the awards that Josh gave out were for best painted model, best painted army. And then he just gave out like just a bunch of random crap to different people. So
Oh yeah, no,
really,
big shout out to Josh for organizing again and for getting us all that prize support. And he had a lot of little freebies for everyone, little stickers and dice and everything that he managed to get a hold of from Baron of Dice, and but a
um
big shout out to them for sure.
definitely. And then like some highlights. Nick from Gamers Haven actually had the balls to bring Fulgrim Transfigured.
Oh, whoa.
Like, and it was like beautifully painted too. Like
He's fantastic.
I
So well.
I was like scared for him watching that thing on the table. I think it broke like 4 times in the day while he was playing. Like he landed up, I think, using like a blast marker for it, like like to like represent it, because I think he was just like tired of gluing it back together. Um, but I think he won best painted mini with that, and it
Of
was
course.
a beautiful model. And apparently, it has a bunch of hidden penises painted as well.
uh, I will say, Nick was a great guy to play against. Honestly, I had the joy of playing against him on the first day, and his army is beautifully painted. It is an awesome looking Emperor's Children army. And for all the people saying that Fulgrim and his new, form and new army rules suck, no, they won. They beat me pretty bad, and I was running Lionel Johnson. I actually had a hard time.
Do you want to walk through your games, and then I'll do mine?
Oh yeah, sure. So first game was against Nick and his Emperor's Children. He obviously brought Fulgrim transfigured. We were playing the mission where we are. What we were? We were fighting over objectives. I forgot what it was. It was one of Josh's missions, and basically came down to us ignoring the mission because my goal was I'm gonna kill Fulgrim. I'm gonna kill Fulgrim with Lion. I don't care about anything else. I want him dead. And of course, I was running the Firewing Red of War for Dark Angel. So if I don't kill Fulgrim and his Dreadnought and one of his HQs, he's gonna get 9 free victory points. I did manage to kill all 3. Well, not exactly kill all 3. Fulgrim used his special rule to run away when he was down to 2 wounds. And keep in mind, I didn't even get Lionel Johnson into combat with him. That was just me blasting away at him like a madman and getting actually very lucky with a tactical squad that tied him up, that managed to do 1 wound on a return with a lucky shot. The lucky fist got through somehow. I don't know. But no, it was great against him, honestly. Emperor's Children are still a scary army, even when they're running that the not so great Rite of War that they're required to. But it was really good, honestly. And again, just seeing a beautiful army painted on against you is just so great. So that's my first game. The second game was against the World Eaters player. I forgot his name,
Oh,
but he
Trevor?
ran, yes, Trevor, and he was running Angron.
Damn,
Oh
Primark.
boy. Yes, it was Paramount galore there. My God, was his list scary. It was fast, it was hard in combat. Lionel Johnson almost died on the first round of combat with Fulgrim. I mean with with the Angron. It was pretty brutal. And I only survived thanks to a little bit of luck on my end for that first round because I Lionel Johnson went down to 2 wounds in that first combat. Ugh, it was really rough. Um, and Angron only took 2 in the first round, so I was like, "Oh, I'm losing this one." But the second round ended up rolling in my favor as Lionel Johnson does have a higher initiative than Angron, so got the first swing in and managed to kill him. So that was fun. But again, the mission was actually the one I wrote up, which was the Voxnet, which I had discussed in the last episode of Hammers and Dice.
Yeah.
So
So how
that's
did it play?
it. Actually played pretty good, honestly. Since we were both somewhat melee focused, we kind of just met in the middle, fighting over the tower, as I kind of intended the mission to fight over. And really, the Voxes didn't come into play until round 3 when he was like, "Okay, Angron's dead. I need to start stopping the scoring." So we started destroying the relays, and he managed to destroy 2 of them. So I was still able to keep scoring till the end of the game, but it was still pretty fun. And even though I won, I think 7-4 because he was able to hold the center for a whole turn and then held one of the two of the relays at the end. It was actually just a really fun game, honestly. I don't really think I thought the mission entirely through though, because honestly, I feel like it was less interactive than I thought it was going to be. So I definitely want to take another crack at rewriting that one.
And that was your entire day one, right?
That was my day 1, yeah. And then day 2, after getting severely drunk the night before in the pool and at the bar, I got roped into a 4x4. Now, a 4v4. Now, originally, I think it was supposed to only be like a 2v2. And then we're like, oh, hey, this guy wants to join us. Okay, we'll make it 3v3. And then we went to 4v4. And they're like, wait, anyone else want to join? Everyone else was like, we're already doing our games. I'm like, oh, okay, cool. We're not going to make this even bigger. But that 4x4, we looked at each other like, hey, this is gonna take the whole day. So this is our day two games in. We're gonna do rounds 1 and 2 before breaking for lunch, and then wrap up 3 and 4 afterwards. And we did. 3,000 points each player, 4v4, 12,000 points each table, 3
Jesus.
Primarchs on the table, mind you. It was Khan and Lionel Johnson with Horus on the other side. And 2 Ward Bearers players, it was agreed that there was oh my gosh, I can't remember my Primarch name suddenly.
Logar?
Logar, there we go. Logar was there in spirit, haunting from the background. But Erebus was on the field. So pretty much we all agreed, okay, these are the targets for purposes of objectives. It's claim table quarters. So every 2x2 square is a quarter that we're trying to claim with troops. And then the Primarchs and Erebus are the objective. So killing the Primarchs was the goal, and killing Erebus was the goal, and just claiming as much of the field as possible. And my God, was it brutal. So much shooting on the first round. And we agreed on a special rule, which was, hey, for the first round, keep track of what's dying, but nothing actually dies until the end of the first round. So both sides got to use everything, move everything, shoot everything, and fight with everything. And
Oh, that's great for a mega battle. That way you just like that
yeah.
sucks.
Oh yeah, no, it helped out a lot because it made sure that because we ended up on the second turn, so it let us keep a few things alive and not die horribly. And likewise, us shooting back didn't necessarily kill anything right off the bat, since everything could still return fire and fight until the end of the round. So it was still like really great being able to do everything, and it really provided a lot of fun, honestly, just having that special rule out. Anyway, so that's how that went. For the setup, we all set it up. It was 2 White Scars, an Ultramarine, and my Dark Angels versus 2 Ward Bears, an Alpha Legion, and a Sons of Horus. Now, that ain't thematic. I don't know what is. But no, it was just a big slogging back and forth. Summon Demons area from Erebus's contingent. Alpha Legion snipers going crazy. Both White Scar players were playing very different lists. One was playing a mechanized list. The other one was playing a very horde list with Khan. And with a lot of air support with javelins and even I think it was a Primaris fighter is what it was. Um, and then the Ultramarines player was our backbone, with me being leading the charge. Needless to say, most of my things were dead by turn two. you you can't charge forward without expecting to die really badly. Lionel Johnson did, however, manage to claim a what is it? The Mechanicum Knight with the rad gun thing. That thing. I forget what it's called.
The Atropos, I think.
Yes, the Atropos. So he claimed the Atropos as a kill. Um, and then, of course, Horus had to descend with not just his Asterion, but also with Erebus summoning a greater demon and a horde of demons, all just to take out poor Lionel Johnson. um, I'm not gonna lie, Lionel Johnson died like a little bitch that day. I did one wound to Horus in a challenge, and then promptly died to his what is it? His mace of death.
Got like a thunder hammer essentially on him.
It's what is it? Concussive, not concussive.
Worldbreaker.
Yeah, Worldbreaker has what is it? Not I'm having a bad day with my rules. I cannot word today.
It's got
Brutal. That's right, brutal too. And just landed every single hit, wounded everything, and of course, I saved 3 rolls before I'm like, oh, fail, 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 fail. Oh, I'm dead. Oh no.
Was he running an extended version of Horus, or was he just doing standard Horus?
It was standard Horus since we were all limited to 3,000 points. I did encourage him to run Horus Ascended if weren't going to bring it, but he was fine with that. I am a little disappointed because I thought he was going to bring his Fellblade because I wanted to see the Fellblade out there with Horus, but obviously you can't run that many Lords of War in 3,000 points. I would have accepted it though. I just would have tossed some more.
You can in Apocalypse.
It basically was Apocalypse for all intents and purposes, but I think we were all just kind of keeping to the theme of the game of everyone's got 3,000 points.
Yeah.
Exactly. But no, it was great. So that was like the first 2 rounds of combat, just Lionel Johnson taking out a knight but getting slain in return, and then both lines just clashing aggressively into each other. Rounds 3 and 4 after lunch was pretty much just the mop up. Most things were dead. Horus did get sniped out because after he killed Lionel Johnson, everything pretty much rotated and opened fire on him and his Justarian. He was done at turn 3. And he died to a White Scars recon with a Nemesis Bolter. Very last shot took out his last wound. So that everyone now knows that recon marine has now been upgraded to Vigilator. And his owner has promised as such that he will become a Vigilator. I think. I don't know. I was kind of drunk for most of round 3 and 4, so I might have misheard, honestly.
I remember hearing that too. I think that is. We'll have to hold him to it and see what he does.
If not, I'll buy him a Vigilator next time I see him. I'll be like, dude, he needs to be a Vigilator. Take this Vigilator kit, rip it apart for parts for him, and then take the regular Vigilator and turn into something else.
So then, who ended up winning that game?
Good question. I don't think we actually cared to tally it, honestly. I think we came to the conclusion that the Loyalist mostly won, just because we had pushed so hard. I think we claimed. Okay, wait. So it was 2 of the 6x4s to put together. So there were 12 tiles. I think we claimed 8 of them to their 4 that they held. I had obviously lost Lionel. They had lost. I
mean, the
Horus.
Like I wasn't in the game, but the traders had practically nothing left by the end of it. Like you guys, I think had cleared them out pretty well.
Pretty much, I think. I know. I was down to I think 2 tanks and like a squad of tacticals in the back. Since I was pretty much depleted, but the Ultramarines were mostly intact. Both White Scars were about halfway intact. Khan was pretty much just roaming the battlefield, taking heads. I know the Ward Bearers players were both pretty depleted. The Sons of Horus player was also pretty depleted out, minus like I think a tactical squad or a tank or 2. Again, memory went very fuzzy at the end there. Too many margaritas at Margaritaville will do that to you. But no, we just had a great time. At the end of it, we were just like cheering and yelling and just having a hoot. And I kind of feel bad because I think some of the 40k players got a little annoyed with how much fun we were having compared to their grinding.
I didn't feel bad.
And that was your entire second day, right, Esfon?
Pretty much, yeah. Anything that happened before or after is lost to the haze of Margaritaville between the heat and the beers. So That's all I remember. Oh, lots of girls screaming because apparently we were doing this entire event while there's a cheerleading event going on next door. Jesus fucking Christ, those girls were annoying. I feel bad for one of the guys because apparently he was on the floor where the girls were just screaming like madmen all night long. He did got not any sleep, and I heard that too because I was the floor above him and I heard it from upstairs. It was bad.
That like you guys are real heroes for picking it out.
Hey, listen, if Sanguinius can suffer the visions of his death to Horus, we can suffer a couple hundred screaming teenagers.
Randy, how did your games go?
So my games went pretty well. I was running my custodies, which I had done a couple practice games against actually both Reed and Beto with them, and they did pretty well.
I got really crushed. It was one of my worst games I've had in a long time as far as my dice rolling, but it was a fun game with Randy.
And I definitely came to the conclusion that they were pretty strong. I actually ended up trying to tone my list down a little bit for the event. But so my first game was against this guy Ben. He's a really nice guy. He brought a word bearers list. It was a tough list, and I have to be honest. I'm not 100% sure it was a fully illegal list.
Oh, this is the one you sent me, right? Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely.
So he had Erebus was his warlord, and he had two esoterists. And then he brought a demons allied contingent there were two sovereigns and a hierarch, as well as like a bunch of like brutes and like lesser demons. But either way, it was a very fun game. I honestly didn't even think about that until the next day I was chatting with Beto, and Beto was like, "Wait, how is that list legal?" And I was like, "I don't know." But he did some scary stuff with it. I mean, because turn one, Erebus, who can summon like a warp portal, as well as the Esoterists, summon portals. The two sovereigns in the hierarch pop out and get a turn one charge off, and they are like in your ranks. Um, and I think if I had any list other than the Custodes, I probably would have like lost by turn two. But he happened to charge into a very strong close combat army. So because the sovereigns and the hierarchs are all characters, he charged two of them into squads and one of them into a dreadnought. So the two they charged into squads, I challenged them. So he could only kill one per turn. And because Custodes are stubborn, he couldn't, I wasn't failing my leadership checks. So I was able to kind of hold weather the storm in the first turn and then come back and like swarm his demons. And it took a while. Those things are hard to kill. Like they have like a 4-up invuln, they have pretty high toughness, It took a couple turns to whittle them down. A couple turns of combat, I think by the end of turn two, which was essentially 4 rounds of combat at that point, I finally killed them. And then he like had summoned more demon brutes. And by that point in the game, like I think once I killed the demon HQs, I was able to kind of swarm him because he didn't have much else with a heavy close combat punch. So I basically made it my objective. I was like, nothing else matters in this game. I just need to kill Erebus. And I tried my hardest. And literally the end of the game, because I didn't have a ton of shooting in my army, but like I shot everything at his squad. And with Erebus, you can't put any wounds on him until the rest of his squad is dead. So I literally killed his entire squad. He was left by himself. I had like a couple custodian wardens in charging distance, and they failed their charge. Oh, it was a disappointing day for the custodians. I did not kill Erebus. It wounds me to my core.
It should be in his rules, like, hey, by the way, if he doesn't die, your opponent automatically loses. Like it's like you have to kill him in every game.
Yeah. They actually did have like we didn't play that mission because he had his own Erebus, but Josh had created like 2 missions that were like character centric. One of them is literally called Fuck Erebus, and it was about like all the loyalists need to do is try to kill Erebus while he was like doing some like rituals across the board. And then the loyalist mission was with Nathaniel Garo, basically the same thing. Like the traitors trying to kill Garo. Well, Garo was like collecting objectives, which I actually did play that. That was my 3rd game. I'll get to that. But my 2nd game in day 1 was against Sean, the Alpha Legion player. And he had head on to Rite of War. He was basically like infiltrating half his army, and then he also had the Knight Megara, I think it is. And that was a tough game. Like he played pretty smart. Fortunately, like I don't have a ton of shooting, but all of my shooting is like anti-tank. And I was able to whittle down the knight. And then one of my dreadnoughts,
Telemon.
yeah, the Talmon, thank you. Talmon is actually like not great in combat against most things, but like weirdly, they're very good against knights because their fist is not brutal, but it does have Sunder and a strength 10. So between like my tanks and the close combat punch from the Telemon, I was able to take out the knight. He did shoot like a lot of my army off the board, but he forgot to move one of his line units onto an objective. So he had missed out scoring some points early on, so I was able to kind of capitalize that and stop him from scoring any more towards the end of the game. But that was a fun game. He played it really well. And then I didn't join one of the mega battles on day two. I had Trevor, who is another player at Gamers Haven. He's a great guy. He's the guy that Esteban played against with the
Oh, World Eaters.
the World
Right?
Eaters with Angron. We
Oh,
had a little grudge match. Last time I played him was with my Thousand Sons, and he kicked my butt with Karn, so I wanted some revenge. So I brought out. I also like I had two different lists. I had a list with Valdor and a list without Valdor. And my first two games, I did the non-Valdor lists. And then because he brought Angron and Karn, I brought out my Valdor list for the game against him, and it was brutal. I mean, we were both basically just charging at each other. Uh, I got fortunate. I was able to stun his Spartan, so he wasn't able to get Angron into a charge turn one. So I was able to kind of position myself a little bit. So by the time Angron did get to me, I was able to swarm him with like four different squads, and I have a picture of it. I'll post it. But it was pretty epic. I had like Valdor and Angron facing off, and just like I think he had like a squad of 20 despoilers, and I had them surrounded with custodies. And it was kind of the opposite of what happened with the Lion. I think like Valdor like kind of kicked Angron's ass. Angron had got like because the way he works, which is insane, like he gets extra attacks for like every player turn. So like by the time, even though it was only like turn two when they got into combat, he already had like four extra attacks. So like he basically was in a challenge with Valdor because he could challenge over as many units as he wants. So he challenged like Valdor, and he issued like one other challenge, which I accepted with like a custodian warden, who actually managed to survive, being like a total hero. But yeah, he struck Valdor. He got a lot of hits in, but Valdor has a 3-up invuln, so I saved most of them. And because I think his rule is like Ravening Madman, he counts his weapon skill 3 when you hit him. So like I was hitting him on 2s.
He is the same as the Red Butchers, like that special
Yeah.
rule.
Yeah,
Yeah, so
it's
when
the
you hit
same
him,
one.
like especially in a challenge, you're hitting his weapon skill, not the majority. So Valdor's weapon skill 7, weapon skill 3, hitting him on 2s. I knocked out like most of his wounds, and then like the custodians just like destroyed the spoilers that he was with. So then I think one of my dreadnoughts basically was able to strike into the challenge after all the spoilers were dead. And the brutal just ate through Angron's last couple wounds, and he went bye-bye. Um, but yeah, it was like brutal, just like a lot of like close combat back and forth. Like I kind of owned that table edge, and then the other side of the table, he had kind of like swarmed the warden squads that I had there. But this was the game where I was keeping Garo alive. So I kind of was able to hold off like Angron and Karn and like move Garo up to collect objectives. So he was never able to touch him. So yeah, it was a really fun game. It was brutal. He's a great player. And yeah, I mean, the custodians are just great. Like I've heard so many people say that they're like been neutered from the last edition, and I'm like, I guess because their shooting is not that great. I guess last edition their shooting was like amazing, and they definitely don't need it. They don't need the amazing shooting. Like they are so good in close combat that once they get into close combat, they just destroy everything they touch. So that was like all I needed. Every game once they get into combat, it was just, I mean, they struggled a little bit with swarmy units if I don't have a ton of them, or like they don't do as great against dreadnoughts. So in certain situations, like you do need to be a little bit tactical. but against most Marine units, especially like Marine elite units, they crush them. It's the Initiative 5 and the native
Yeah.
AP2. Just make them so powerful in close combat. But yeah, so that I was like, after that event, I was like, okay, like I feel like my custodies need to kind of like be a once in a while army for playing against
Randy,
someone.
I keep hearing that from you with all your armies.
I mean, I don't know. I think my Lunavos and my Thousand Sons are pretty, you
That's
know,
fair.
pretty chill.
That's how I feel about my demons army. I was like, oh no, I've broken the game too much, maybe with these demon rules. We'll do a game. I'll do demons versus the custodes. Let's see who's the most
Yeah, like
broken.
a war in the Webway, just full carnage.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, that was the event. I think it was a ton of fun. I think if you went into it, which I don't think anybody did, but if you were the kind of person who likes very structured events and like wants to like be the top player and wants to, get an award for first place, like this wouldn't you would not have enjoyed the Heresy event. Like if that's what you want in your events, then you wouldn't have liked it. I think that like it was kind of the antithesis of that. This was very much like we're getting together to hang out, to like get drunk, to play fun games. Um, and like it doesn't matter who wins or loses. Like we weren't recording our scores at the end of our games. We were just like at the end of the game, it's like, okay, I won, you lost, whatever. Like on to the next one, like a game. It was not like, oh yeah, I have to tally every single point that I got so that like I can make sure that I have more points than the other guys. It like did not have that feel to it at all. Um, which
And
like
is that a good thing or a bad thing in this instance? So you're saying good, but like, listening and trying to get ready for LVO this year.
it depends on your expectations.
Yeah,
That's my point. I think like you have to set the expectations for the event, I think. LVO draws a bigger, more diverse crowd. So I think you're gonna the difficulty with that is, and this is something that I think is a longer conversation. But you're gonna have more diverse people with more diverse expectations about what they want in their event, which makes it
sure.
a little bit harder to like crowd please. We basically, for this, there were only 15 players. A lot of us knew each other. We were from basically like three different gaming communities. The Geeky Tees guys, like Esteban and I, like are the Burbank guys, the Gamers Haven guys from Colton, and then there were a few guys from San Diego. So like everybody knew each other. Like everybody was like down to just like hang out and have chill games. And also like Josh like set that expectation. He was like, this
Right.
is about like fucking around and having fun. Like if you try to be that guy who's like being a dick, like we're like, you're not gonna have a fun time, you know? So yeah, I think it's setting that expectation for the players, like this is the type of event this is. If this isn't what you're looking for, maybe don't come, you
Sure.
know?
And he
Um,
said that beforehand too, so it shouldn't have surprised anyone.
yeah, I feel like the issue with LVO is that no matter what you say, there's gonna be guys who are gonna be like, oh, but that's not what I want. Because if you have like because I think LVO is like one of the largest heresy events like in the country.
Yeah.
Maybe there's like one or two other ones that are like maybe a little bit bigger, but like people come from all over the world for LVO. And
Right.
they all have their own expectations.
I've been toying with that idea of like maybe instead of doing two games for the second day, like you have the option to play a doubles battle with somebody. And then like, I feel like that kind of structuring of like, hey, this is what we want to do. I got to do that in one of my LVO battles a couple of years ago, and it was a great game. Like it was a great 2v2, and it was just our one game for the day, similar to Esteban, you were talking about your 4v4. Um, that kind of stuff just like that just seems like a really great player empowerment, which is like what I'm about. So it sounds less structured in that way, but just curious.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just about figuring out a way to scale it for 100 players. That's I think going to be the challenge for LVO.
Right.
But yeah, so that was the event.
Thanks for sharing with us, guys. Like
Yeah,
your experience.
I'm
Yeah,
so
no,
jealous I didn't get to go.
I know, right?
I mean,
I
there's always
mean,
next year. We really hope. We were talking a lot about like where else they could do it. So we're
Yeah,
not in a hurry to
really.
go again. We were all like, yeah, we definitely want to come again, but we really hope it's not here.
The consensus is that you're never going to do that venue again, right? Like,
I very much hope the event gets moved next year.
I hear Esteban just wants to be drinking there, though, which I'll join you for that as well.
I'm not gonna lie, I don't get the opportunity to drink myself silly very often, so that was the most
I'm
enjoyable.
sure wherever it is, there will be booze. I do
ever
not think
since
they're gonna, you know.
Jimmy Buffett died, the place has been going down the like.
Okay, so we're gonna transition now into the new segment that we started last time, which is every podcast, one of us is going to create a custom mission that we'll share with the episode, and give us and the viewers the opportunity to play it, and we can maybe talk a little bit about it the next time. So this time I wrote a mission. I literally just wrote it today, so I have no idea how effective it's going to be. But Reed told me I had to include shield generators because he's been busy at work painting.
Yes.
So this mission is called Generator Control. It's Dawn of War deployment. The way you set it up is there's three objectives, one in the center, and then like one closer to one side and one closer to the other side. So they're kind of like diagonally in like a straight line across the middle ground. And then before deployment, but like after strategic advantage roll off, each player puts down an objective in their own deployment zone wherever they want, 6 inches from the table edges per normal. And that's kind of where like the similarities to a normal objective game ends. I tried to mix it up a little bit. So the objectives in the middle are shield generators. And essentially, you want to capture them. And when you're holding onto it, your infantry units within 6 inches of it get a 5+ invuln save, which only applies to models within the 6 inches. So you can't have like a 20-man squad and like two guys inside, and then the entire squad gets the invuln. Like they have to actually be within the 6 inch bubble to get that save. But in order to score that point, you need to have a line unit controlling the objective in your deployment zone, which I'm calling a control hub. So essentially, you're like having like a unit that the idea is that they kind of have a connection with the field crews to like capture these shield generators. So in order to score any points from the shield generators or to get the shield, you have to have a unit controlling the objective in your deployment zone. But you don't score any points for holding the objective in your deployment zone. You only score the points from getting the shield generators. Or if you capture your opponent's control hub, you score points for holding theirs. The other thing too is that you can destroy the shield generators. So if your opponent manages to like deep strike into your deployment zone and like wipe out the one tactical squad you had, like holding your backline objective, like it's not like game over. You can still kind of maybe try to get their control hub, or you can try to destroy the shield generators, which they're tough. Like I didn't want it to be a thing where you could just like shoot at them once and blow them up. Like you have to put some energy in killing them. Each one has T6, 8 wounds, a 3-up save, and a 4-up invuln.
They'll also have Internal Warrior too, just
Yeah.
in case.
Yeah. And if they are destroyed, they explode like strength 8, no AP, D6 plus 3-inch blast. So if your opponent's controlling something and you maybe want to try to blow it up, you can, but you have to put a significant amount of firepower into it. So yeah, that's the game. It's pretty standard rules in terms of like 4-turn game. You can roll for a 5th turn. I like the way SN does it, where the player without strategic advantage gets to choose if it's night fighting, because I feel like that balances the game out a little bit.
Absolutely.
And then also like typical secondary objectives that are from the Siege of Salonia: kill the warlord, break their ranks, last man standing. I like made like a couple tweaks to the wording, but it's pretty standard. Yeah, that's the game. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. When I was reading it, I guess I missed the part where you place the control hub. So I was like, well, how do I score any points if I'm only securing the shield generator? But now it makes much more sense. And also, I love the part that you specifically mentioned, because like, yeah, I like with you, I really like that SN does. Yeah, the opposite person will do select the night fighting, because then if not, then the person going second is just punished unfairly. But I like that you made the caveat for like Night Lords, because I'm like, well, that would suck if a Night Lord player is running Terror Assault, and you're like, never mind.
Yeah.
Right. I think it's a great set of rules, Randy. I think it's like a lot of fun. Um, I think the thing that I challenge as well to kind of consider as well is like when I was reading it quickly, it seems that there's less incentive to maybe destroy the shield generators, which like this is why I'm trying to get ready. Like, so not to spoil too much for LVO, but I'm trying to get 60 shield generators done by that point. And so 60 is, so I assume that there's going to be 100, at least 100 players, maybe 120, 60 boards. So one for each. So I can't do 3 shield generators. But what I think, what I want to get to is the idea that, the traders are trying, or, the attacker is trying to destroy the shield generators while the loyalists should be trying to, power them up or do something with them. So I think giving more reason for whoever is attacking to try to destroy them, I think is a good thing to look at with, how to continue, refining the rules.
Yeah, I mean, this one I wrote specifically to be more generic. I definitely
Sure.
think there's a world for like doing an attacker defender thing. I wanted to have there be less of an incentive to destroy the shield generators in this, specifically because I think like, I mean, from a narrative perspective, that kind of mission is cool, but it's also gives a little bit too much power to shooting legions. Like if you have a couple, like if you have a couple heavy support squads or a couple big tanks, like I wanted to make it where like to de-incentivize you to be like in the first turn, like, oh, I'm just going to destroy all the objectives.
Yeah.
Sure.
Because then they're all destroyed turn one.
Right.
Like I want to be like, oh, like it's better for you to try to score them yourself, because if you put too much firepower into destroying them, A, you're probably not going to do it in one turn, and B, that's a lot of firepower that your opponent's not going to get shot by. So that was the incentive for this one. I think like if you like, there's a way to be more narrative about it, but I think you have to think about maybe if you do that, then like you have to get into base contact with them to destroy them or something.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or like as opposed to being able to shoot them off the board. So yeah, I think there's options for that. But that was something that I was like writing this. I was like, how can I avoid a situation where one player is just like, okay, boop, all their objectives are gone.
Yeah, I was gonna actually say, Reed, like if you're looking for a shield generator type mission, this is actually one of the better ones I've read. I mean, because this is a pretty common like custom mission that I see. Like, oh, someone's got to destroy something, someone's got to defend something, and it's a destroyable object. But the problem is, in actual practice, what's stopping a last can squad turn one being like, I blew it up, game over, So it's like,
well, I do think that there's a narrative version. I hear you, Beto, on that, and like that is good to kind of keep in mind. I'm going to look at it more and see like how if I can use it more for LVO. What I'm thinking is like the idea that maybe since it is a shield generator, the idea that it might degrade over the mission. So like maybe at the turn one, it has a 2-up void shield. Which is just like an invuln basically, but by turn 4 it's maybe a 5-up.
yeah,
And it's gaining points until then. Like I'm just saying, like I think that there's a method in here, and I'm still trying to figure it out. But the idea that it's generating power that you can trade for victory points, and that can denigrate the shields, basically.
that's
It's
actually
an allocation of the loyalists who are saying we can't hold all the void shields. We're redirecting power to where it's most needed.
yeah. I actually think that's a really good way of looking at it as like, maybe not destroying it, but maybe like the more wounds you do to it, the less victory points the defender gets to keep at the end of the game,
Yeah.
That way there's like such clear, like, well, I blew it up, and then like, well, that's turn 2, what do we do now?
Mm-hmm.
Like,
and it's the idea of holding rather than just like the idea of outright, one person wins while the other isn't. It's the idea that there's a lot of different battles at different points, and it's just the idea of like attrition in a lot of cases.
Yeah,
True.
I mean the one thing, and I actually like that idea, but the one thing like writing this, I was like realizing as I was writing it, the potential issue is having it become too complex. Like, I
Sure.
know you're worried
And
about that.
that's what I keep
I
hearing.
was like, is this too like complicated? But like, yeah, like having it simple enough that, especially because it's a custom mission, chances are like they're not reading it before they play it. Or if they're reading it, like they're reading it like once in a mission pack, they're not like they never played it
Right.
before. Making it simple enough that like they can kind of not have to constantly be checking the rules, be like, okay, what's going on now? But yeah, I mean, there's a way to do that. There's definitely, I think it's just gonna take some trial and error.
Totally.
I agree. I was gonna say I like this mission because I always love destructible missions. Although I will say T6 wounds 8 Eternal Warrior and a 3-up 4-up sounds really really hard to destroy. I know we're worried
No,
about last cannon squads, but
I mean, because like I don't think that this is the type of mission that he's looking for his like I didn't write this to be an LVO mission. Like
Yeah,
this
you
is
definitely didn't. And like that's not what I
this
gave as
is
the
like I
criteria.
wanted to de-incentivize people from trying to destroy them. Like I want it to be like if you're going to destroy them, it's kind of like it's like a final option. It's like it's not
Right.
your first choice. I want it to be like you're like losing the game and your opponent has total control of your like control hub and like your only choice is to like try to destroy them. Like that's kind of the way, and like obviously you have to play test it and see, how effective that would be. But yeah, my hope would be that like it's hard enough to destroy them that that's not your first goal is to try to destroy them. You're like incentivized to try to capture them first.
Yeah, and I fully disagree, Esteban. I actually think this is a really good stats for a shield generator because this does exactly what counters my problem with them is that sometimes they're just too weak and they blow up so quickly. This is a legitimately difficult target. You're killing a dreadnought essentially.
yeah,
And
it's true. Yeah,
But I mean, like we can kill a dreadnought really quick, by a last cannon team firing, which is what you were talking about, and it could feasibly get through this fairly quickly. And if not, like it's definitely not shooting back, and so there's kind of no damage of shooting at it, rather than
Good,
just like
but then you're also,
target priority.
but
I was gonna
it's
say.
target priority. It's like,
Yeah,
yeah, like a 10-man last cannon squad is probably gonna destroy it, but probably not in one turn. You probably have to shoot at it 2 turns in a row, which means that's 2 turns of 10 last cannons not shooting your opponent.
yeah,
And it's like for them is a pretty big boon. Like if you have a 10-man last cannon squad not shooting at you for 2 turns, like that's huge, you
Mhm.
know.
True. To be honest, I think the only thing I would remove off of it for sure would be Eternal Warrior because T6 is already immune to pretty much everything except what is it?
Well, it's I think to
The
help with
Dread Hammer.
brutal.
yeah. It's the help from a Paragon blade being like a roll to 6, you're dead.
Hey,
Yeah, Paragon
if someone's
Blade.
sending a Praetor to go kill it and gets a lucky 6, I think they deserve it.
But it's like once again, it's for brutal. That brutal. I mean, in the instant death rule, yeah, it just becomes a
Right,
D3
but
instead. Yeah,
what's strength 12 with brutal though?
A demolisher.
Exactly,
a
Demolisher
warlord
Cannon.
titan.
A war. Okay, wait. If you're playing a game with a Warlord Titan,
Yeah, I know, right?
so I think the only thing that doubles it out would be like turbo lasers, the Demolisher Cannon, or the
Demolisher Vindicator. That's a common unit if you want to run a Vindicator.
yeah, it's a blast though. It'll miss. Luck-wise, it'll
Not
miss every
necessarily.
time. Mm,
I do like if you especially if you have like if you're taking those, there's a good chance you have Nuncio Voxes. So you
Yeah.
have
true. Okay, so the one person, the Iron Warriors player, has a great time with the mission if it doesn't have Eternal Warrior.
I'm just saying like there's no reason like there's no negative to Eternal Warrior. Like
No, I just like the idea of being if somebody has something that cannons to kill it, they shouldn't be because most of the things that have that kind of strength to instant kill are usually detriments, like you're taking a fell blade or something. Like I'm already taking this massive gun that's taking up a big chunk, and I'm not taking other cool things. At least I can destroy this objective in one shot
The
rather
play
than 8
is
shots.
only strength 10 AP1. So the big gun on the 700 point fell blade ain't gonna kill it.
You're right. You're right. So I'm thinking of the other one. The what's the one
Falchion.
that has the falchion? There we go. The falchion with its twin linked volcano cannon. I feel like that should, if it's going to open fire on a shield generator, I mean that's its job. It's a twin linked turbo laser cannon. It's designed to take out shields.
I
I
think
want to get a plastic falchion. When are you going to make that GW?
They did.
uh,
We sold it a couple months ago. they,
I,
they
Falchion?
charged the bat. Oh, the falchion. Sorry, I thought you. I heard Bastion for some reason. I'm like Bastion. What are you talking about? That's been out.
Nah.
30
Uh,
pulling us off track from the mission. Like think the mission's really good, but the only suggestion I would think is like in order to try to avoid people from really shooting it off the board, shield generators should have to be destroyed in close combat. That way, it eliminates someone from just straight up shooting it. You have to get close to it to blow it up. And, that does make for a cool last-ditch effort, a command squad with two guys, got a couple power fists. They're going to go in and, try to see what they can,
I'm going to argue against that, though, Beto, because it's like the idea of, like, who are you doing it with if it's the Solar Ox or the militia?
Yeah, I guess
they don't have enough crack grenades or melt-a-bombs, I think, to do it.
That's going to say maybe the save should be down to a 4-4 rather than a 3-4, because then crack grenades with AP4 just start wrecking it.
Yeah, I guess maybe it's saying that like it's actually only armor value 12 or something, but you have to kill it in close combat. That way, it gives the emergency Solar Rock squad that had to run in a chance to have their hero moment without being like, well, I'm only strength 3 and I ain't gonna do nothing to this,
But why else would they take 12 Vanquisher cannon battle tanks
to shoot everything else? It's about and you have to focus stuff on the shield generators. I think it's a great mission.
Yeah. I mean, like, part of it is, like, I don't mind if someone tries to shoot it off the board, because, again, it's, like, it's the give and take. Like, for me, the issue is if it's too easy to destroy, then, like, it's like, why not do it? But if it's hard enough to destroy, like, that's a calculated risk you're making by being, like, you have to allocate enough resources to destroy it, which is giving your opponent a break. Like, if you can't shoot at it, you're not going to. If you can, but like you're not necessarily going to destroy it, then you're being forced to make a difficult choice, which I think like that, like the best heresy games to me are the ones where like you have to make a difficult choice.
Yeah.
That's like the goal of a good heresy game is to like make difficult decisions without knowing if it's going to pay off. Because at the end of the day, it's a dice game, but you still have to choose what to shoot at and roll the dice and see what happens.
Right. So who's right? For next episode's mission, Reed, you want to try some for these shield generators that you're making, or maybe
I would love for we have talked as a group, but not on camera about this. But like we are going to eventually do one about the about LVO coming up, and I'm going to try to get up some more. I've been actually working on the mission packet lately. I have a basic one, but I have one mission that I'm trying to replace with the shield generator one. But I'm going to start releasing a little bit more information on LVO, and I actually think that if this is the custom mission that I make, I'd be happy for people to see it beforehand, and kind of then understand it, so it's not a mystery mission going in, but something very themed that people can understand what's happening.
Yeah, I think that's super smart. That way, I have definitely come across the problem at LVO where I'm like, trying to learn this mission on the fly and also stick to a half-hour time limit so I don't screw up. Right. And it would be. And
I've already said like next year it's about having rules printed out as well. So like you have a top page basically that says this is everything you need for this mission.
Yeah.
I was gonna say that's the one thing I wish I could have done with Josh, which was better organize how we were presenting missions. Because originally I was thinking packet, but he was on a different wavelength and was like, hey, we'll do what the other guys did, which I forget what group he was talking about. I think it was a group up in NorCal, but they had one mission per table and just set up like that. So it was a 1-page mission. And I was like, oh no, everything I wrote was 2 pages. I need to reformat everything. So I do like the idea of a printed book because that coincides better with a 2-page mission format, because you can open a book and be like, okay, description of rules 1 page, opposite page, deployment, and any additional information. Makes it a very easy read, essentially, as opposed to a single page of going back and forth between that and like a main mission book, or say having to look through a PDF. No hate against Alex from last year's LVO, but the PDF was kind of a pain in the butt trying to scroll through. I was like, wait, why
totally.
I can't read. What's this?
And like
part
of the saboteur that we got, like you couldn't read all of the rules. So like it's stuff like that I want to make sure that stuff is streamlined so that next year because like I was in the middle of the games and I'm like, I don't know what the hell to do with my saboteur because I don't know its rules very well.
Yeah.
So knowing that stuff going into it, I think makes it more enjoyable.
Yeah.
To be honest, I think maybe a hybrid work. Like you have printed rules like one per table. That way you're not wasting, a whole forest down for the rule packet. But also like say, hey guys, for anyone who wants to read the rules, there's a download link for a PDF and you can download it here. And it should just be a very simple, no frills PDF that you can download. Because that's
Yep.
the one thing that was bugging me about the rule set was that it was on like a drive or something. It wasn't like a
The Google
downloadable
Drive.
PDF. Yeah, and I had just the most awful time trying to download and open it. Like I don't know if it was permission settings or something else. I just could not view it on my local phone reader. It
Well, what
kept
I'm gonna
going to something else.
I hear you on that, and like I had the same issue. So it's like it was just that we were trying to open up a Google Doc on our phones. Like if it's a PDF though, exported and on there, it shouldn't have those formatting issues. So like I'm aware of that kind of stuff, and I'm trying to figure out how to make next year as best as possible with that.
But then I think just yeah, you should write the mission for our next like episode, and then fans of the podcast and LVO can have a sneak peek of what you're thinking for the missions.
Cool.
Yeah.
That's how we'll ring people in to subscribe to us. Look, we've got secret LVO information. Come
Gotta know.
subscribe.
Very secret. It's secret to me too. So if you guys know anything, let me know.
Before we sign off, we did just do our first battle report, Luna Wolves versus Sons of Horus. If you haven't checked it out yet, because I think this will probably release after the battle report comes out. If you haven't checked it out yet, go take a look. Let us know what you think. We definitely learned a lot doing it. It's interesting. I've watched a lot of battle reports before and been like, oh man, you guys are messing up all these rules, and then like doing it. Like, I just focus on so many different things. And then like as I was editing it, I was like, oh man, I messed up so many rules. Yeah, it tastes my own medicine. It's not so easy doing these things.
Well, that was our first time, so it was like there's
Yeah.
definitely things to improve, obviously, but it was a really cool mission based from the Black Book 1 Betrayal. And I think it was the Death of Gods and Kings mission, if I'm right.
Yeah.
But it was a really
cool
great,
mission.
very fluffy Isstvan 3 battle report of like Abaddon coming to end Loken. And it was a great, showdown, rumble in the jungle kind of mission.
Yeah. So please check it out. Let us know what you guys think. Also, let us know what you thought of this. If you were at Palm Springs with us, we'd love to hear your thoughts. If you have any ideas about missions or anything you want us to talk about in the future, let us know. Like and subscribe and all that stuff. And we'll see you on the next one.
See y'all.
Thanks for listening, guys.